we're talking about AI job loss. This is one of the topic that I think has reached every level of person. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, your friends or someone you know has been impacted by this, or you're at least hearing about it on the internet. I think that's the most impactful thing is that you really can't escape it online. Everybody is talking about AI, the AI bubble, how it's going to impact your job, and everyone's saying that AI is taking all the jobs. And so when these big companies are doing these mass layoffs, the story that they're spinning is the fact that it's AI is the reason for these jobs. And while that may be true, it doesn't mean that AI itself is performing the job that of the person who's getting fired, right? Which is what they want you to think is that, okay, these jobs are being taken by AI, and it's not directly being taken by AI. It's largely being taken by decisions that are attached to AI and things that were done in 2020, like we mentioned. So I have one video that I want to share, which was really one of the big inspirations for this episode in particular. So let me share it. It's this guy who he did a really good job, and then we're going to dissect it and dive into everything. But here it is.
Precise about it.
Can you hear it or no?
I can hear it through your
It
mic.
gets at corporate structure and finance and not really at AI and the way you think.
So when people think AI layoffs, they
Yeah,
think
perfect.
the
That
robots
works.
are doing the jobs now. And therefore we are having layoffs.
Oh, now I
No.
can hear both.
The people who are doing the jobs are more stressed.
They're still at Amazon.
It's me.
But the AI automation story isn't actually hitting those jobs. What is hitting those jobs and is related to AI is the cost of chips. So NVIDIA sells chips to everyone, GPUs. Those chips are how we power AI. And none of the major cloud providers can get enough chips right now. Microsoft can't, Google can't. Google's in an easier spot. They have TPUs. And Amazon definitely can't. In fact, people don't know this, but AWS has a roughly 25% burning backlog on GPUs. In other words, they are missing out on revenue because companies are begging for more compute from.
That's crazy to hear, right? The fact that AWS is having to turn away business essentially. Could you imagine a world where Amazon would turn away dollars unless they actually had to? Like that was one of the craziest things through this whole conversation that I really perked up about was like, again, like obviously fact check all the sources, everything, but that's a pretty insane thing to hear out loud. So let's continue.
AWS that they can't fulfill because they can't buy GPUs because they only had so much budgeted to buy GPUs. And so, yes, the layoffs are related to AI, but in this case, it is burning corporate demand for GPU chips that is hitting the capital expenditure budget of Amazon so hard that they need to find other ways to reduce fixed costs so they can meet the expectations of Wall Street around the overall margins of the business. And you might.
I'm going to try to jump in here, and Keith, you feel free to do the same to like add further context. But the major issue that we have with a lot of these companies is that it is so much perception in terms of what the numbers are saying, what they mean. And a lot of people are banking on things always going up and going up at a faster rate, which eventually reaches a point where it's fundamentally impossible to maintain and sustain. And AI is really just kind of exaggerating that reality because there's so many things coming together at one time. And ultimately, you have to figure out some way to like maintain positive optics. Otherwise, it can have a major impact on the share price of a stock, which then in turn also has a massive impact on the company at large. And so it's really choosing between like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like you're screwed either way. And so a lot of this is having to make decisions to what they, I guess, is feel like it's maintaining more optics and hopefully getting to maintain and increase the share price. But then we'll also talk about the circular investing more after he continues. Anything else, Keith, that you wanted to add?
No.
Cool.
Be like, well, why does that matter? They're all like billion-dollar companies. In Amazon's case, their margins have always been notoriously thin everywhere except AWS. Retail is like a ridiculously thin business.
I keep pausing this because I want to make sure everyone has full context here. So AWS is Amazon Web Services. So Amazon, like a massive sector of their business, because what they were doing in terms of delivering your package in 2 days, like that was never the long-term vision. That was a very unsustainable, non-profitable business. So what they did for the longest time, you'll notice this, that their customer service was exceptional. Like 10 years ago, they went above and beyond because all they were trying to do was to get us hooked to a service where they could then build high profit businesses around that anchor of us being hooked to the consumer experience that we've known to come and either love or hate, but either way use a lot in terms of Amazon. And so they built this AWS, Amazon Web Services, to take advantage of the fact that this was a massive emerging market. And it's one of the highest profitable forms of their business. And it's very related to chips, AI, cloud computing in terms of how apps function. And we talked about it on a previous episode where when one small sector of AWS went down, a massive amount of the internet crashed as well. So there's so much riding on the success of AWS and these chips. So like the stakes are absurdly high. I just want to add that additional context.
But the AWS margins have been really good. And so the street, for better or worse, expects them to continue growing the high margin business at a good clip. The street was not happy with their 18% year over year growth rate this quarter. And the street is looking for them to pick that growth rate back up, which they cannot do if they cannot buy more chips. And they cannot buy more chips without destroying their margin unless they can cut costs other places. And chips are so expensive that the only way they can cut costs is by going after jobs or fixed costs or salaries. And that is what is happening. And so really, when you read this, instead of reading this as a guidebook to where AI is automating, read it as a guidebook to the things that Amazon finds least painful to cut when they have to trade talent for GPUs in order to maintain their margins. So these were very hard discussions, and the places they cut are places that I think they are strategically not as invested in. And that is the way I read it. None of this does anything to make people who got fired today feel better. And so I don't want to pretend it does. If you got let go from Amazon, that really sucks. And this doesn't fix it. And I hope you find a role soon. There is absolutely life after Amazon. I found life after Amazon. It does happen. There's a huge network of Amazon alumni out there, including me. And yeah, we look out for each other as best we can. But the narrative is something I do care about getting right, because I am tired of lazy narratives around AI, and I wanted to be very precise here. So that's what's really going on. And yeah, when you hear the easy AI automation story, kick the rocks a little bit and see what crawls out.
So that's really important to share here, right? Because everyone has kind of used AI as like their get out of jail free card, right? Where it's something that is such a main point of topic where when we can blame something that is like a character, which is what all of these people who are building this have basically created this perception publicly that this thing is more than software. Like this is just software that people are personifying to be the boogeyman to answer all of their problems and to get out of jail free in terms of any mistakes that they may have made as a business. It's not me, it's AI, right? And so I think, where do you want to go from here, Keith?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the major takeaway from this story and this thought here is like, where does this incentive to go all in on AI really come from?
Mhm.
And he points out like the street, right? Wall Street is who's encouraging all of this investment. And so I wanted to dig deeper into like this concept of corporate governance today. And like, what is it exactly? Like, how do corporations make decisions? Who are they making decisions for? And how can sometimes these incentives around that get misaligned? So to start, I wanted to show this tweet because I saw this and I thought it was very relevant. Anastasia Zicht has said, investor says that we need AI, right? And so the CEO is like, yeah, that's right, we need AI. The product manager, he goes out and he builds AI. And the dev says, all right, I've created it. Like, here's the AI. And then the user says, but I don't want AI. And this is kind of just, one sector of what we're kind of seeing here as far as like, yes, people are using AI, but it's definitely being a little bit overdone and also overutilized in terms of just the term AI. Whereas it's like, okay, we've had machine learning for quite some time, and like the use cases of that have been here for quite some time. All the algorithms that we utilize on social media are in that sense a form of AI. But this concept of like put an AI on it is like a little bit less needed than what it is being offered at. So
Yes,
this one,
it's definitely a buzzword, right? Whenever these massive technological shifts take place, there's always buzzwords that people try to use to like increase the perception of the fact they're doing good things, to increase their share price, all that good stuff or bad stuff, depending how you view it. But AI, like I think one of the fundamental problems here, and I want you to continue on with your point, but like much like we talked about with blockchain and crypto, is that the end user in the vast majority of cases doesn't like they need to not know they're using AI if they really want to make it super successful. And the problem right now is that they haven't cracked the whole UI UX experience for how to use this in most practical ways. And I also think that AI people in general are dramatically exaggerating the technical aptitude of the mainstream public. Like, I think they think people are, because they're in their own little echo chamber, man, where they're like the smartest people on the planet when it comes to tech. And they think that like everybody around the world knows this stuff, or you could just upskill them quickly. I can say firsthand, as someone who runs like very basic consumer products, the average person can barely use a computer, bro. Bro, it's true, man. Like, unless you have a job where you are using this stuff every single day, like a lot of people, they really can't deal with complex software, and it's way too hard to use AI right now. And I don't see that changing dramatically super soon. Like, they have a lot of things to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed a comment from RD.
Yeah.
She said, "Why aren't the companies trying to change the narrative? It's almost like they don't care. They are taking advantage of the poor marketing."
So I don't think they want to change the narrative at all, because the narrative is, like I said before, it's separated from them, right? It's like, we can't control this AI entity. It's this character, right? It's not me, it's AI, right? Like that is the perfect narrative. So honestly, I don't think they would ever want to change it. And I think that it was either a perfect coincidence or accident, or it was the plan all along. Because how do you get away with doing all of this stuff without creating a public narrative when it seems like it's something separate from human decisions? Like, that's what they've convinced us all of, this reality that like, oh, we couldn't stop it, or like you can't slow it down. Like, these are all just human beings creating software that's then creating these outcomes. So it's just human being decisions. But great question there. It took me a month to know more than 94% of humans, LOL, when it comes to computers. Yeah, a lot of people they really don't like technology, and they fight it a lot. And if you go a long enough period of time with where you weren't keeping up with the layer before, because it stacks and it compounds, right? Like, as someone who's designed apps, I make decisions based on the decisions that were made before me, right? So if you missed that before, you are just so overwhelmed and it's so intimidating. And a staggering amount of people, even in office jobs, are there. Like, I have friends that run like pretty decent office jobs and they make pretty good money, and I see how they use technology, and I'm like, bro, there's no world where this stuff gets incorporated quickly, because it's not that user friendly. Like, it's really, really not. Like, a lot of these systems, I think they will crack that eventually, but I don't think that they can automate people as fast as they're trying to convince everyone they can. I think it's a convenient narrative.
Hmm. I honestly, I stand on the other side of that. I mean,
Okay, tell me.
obviously, I think that when it comes to the investment that's happening right now, yes, we're way out ahead of, what impact and result we're actually going to get from this. Um, but I think that's what investment is, right? Like,
Yes, it's
that's
projecting.
what
Yeah,
you're
true.
supposed to do. And so my big thing is, if we really look back 3 years ago to what ChatGPT was in the fall of 2022 to what it's capable of now, especially as they just released a lot of these new features, and the level at which we're seeing things like Lovable or some of these other like platforms where you just like type to it and it gives you a real output of something that you could use in some way or another. I honestly believe that if we project out another 5 years from now, a $5 trillion market cap for Nvidia probably won't even it probably won't be enough. Um, and that's just 5 years. Like, I really think that because here's the thing, we've all been trained to use Google, is my thing, right? So
But that
we
was over a long period of
understand
time, dude.
facts. But what I'm saying is that nothing about that that use, nothing about internet user behavior needs to change, is my thing. So all I have to do now is just go to ChatGPT and I Google the same way that I used to before, or I go to Perplexity and I Google the same way that I used to before. And eventually, like, we're going to be able to get so much more output from that same user action that we like. I honestly think that it'll be insane from just
Man,
that same type of action of I'm going to Google my problem and get the answer back. But now instead of it being just an answer, I'm going to have something created to respond to this problem that I have. And I genuinely think that that's probably 5 years away from like having that go out, place an order on Amazon and uh, do a return for me. And like next thing you know, I got a little pet robot who's going to take it to the dang UPS store. um, I don't know. Yeah, I think the use cases won't be I think the adoption rather will happen really fast because we've already got the internet the user behavior that's needed to fix to make it work is how I look at it at least.
So I think that 5 years is probably a realistic time frame, but for how quickly shit is crumbling, is that I don't like, I think that's not fast enough to not lead to some pretty horrific outcomes, I would say. So I totally hear what you're saying, and I do think that it'll eventually get to an experience where it's mostly agentic, meaning the AI is performing the actual tasks for you. But we're also assuming a lot of dangerous things here, like, right? We're assuming the same rate of progress, right? And so we're also assuming there won't be hurdles, hiccups, all these things that we've talked about so many times in terms of the building the actual infrastructure. The legal thing, I
Yeah.
think, is massive. Like, if anybody was truly aware of how many laws are being broken here, like that could really
Yeah.
slow some stuff down here. Like, all of these people are, or again, I don't want to say all these people, but like a lot of companies out here are training models on stuff that is not theirs, right? So it's definitely a concerning thing. I got some notes. What's up?
No, I'm just that point there. I mean, it's pure robbery. I don't think like the problem that I think exists is that there's no way to stop this. I actually worked on a project a few years ago, and it was this really cool concept. It was called automation, and it was this concept of creating an internet of rules. And this actually was a guy in Canada who was working on this. And the idea being like, it's really hard to actually prevent from a physical, if you may, or technical standpoint, uh, the copying of someone else's intellectual property.
Hmm.
Um, Blockchain in a way can fix it, but the problem, and this was what I thought was so cool about this project, is that that actually has to happen at the internet layer. It can't happen on the blockchain layer because the blockchain is an extension of the fact that we have the cables and all of the physical internet infrastructure that already exists. In order for you to connect to your blockchain, you got to have AT&T. You know what I mean? So, um, so we'd have to have a rules based system that exists at that layer,
Hmm.
and so until we have that, I think the intellectual property issues that come with this, I don't think we're gonna have anything I mean, think about torrenting. Like, it still goes on. You can't stop that from happening, and if the stuff that we're trying to get is valuable enough, then it'll just be done, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I think that they'll be able to push through it. And we also saw the OpenAI whistleblower guy try to come out and whistleblow, and that did not work out too well for him. So yeah, there's definitely, I think it'll still happen regardless. I'm just saying that theoretically it could slow down. One thing, we got a thing from here from Big where it says AI will not be the reason for this huge economic downturn. Many people are about to be extremely confused. What do you mean by that? So AI is the only way to get us over this hurdle. So how I read that is that you're saying that a lot of decisions of kicking the can down the line have come to a point where really the only way out is AI, or at least that's what will be sold to us. There will be a point when all data is collected and humans will organize the data based on falsehoods, and that will be the factors that the AI is trained on. That was actually giving me my next point that I wrote down here, is that we're assuming that this stuff can keep getting better, but it's going to run out of human generated content to learn from. So essentially, it's going to be learning from itself. And is that a good or a bad thing? Right? I think we're already close to that point where it's learning on other AI created content, which then can create even further hallucinations and all of this stuff. And it still consistently makes shit up all the time. Like I still find that it's making stuff up very consistently. It's smarter than we think. It's smarter than we think. It's plotting and waiting. Cause manipulative humans trained it. Yeah, that's the concern that you're going with. Go ahead, Keith.
Hmm. I like it. I like it because the idea here is that if we're creating artificial intelligence and it mirrors humanity, then it would absolutely be self-interested. And it would be very clever about those self-interests in the way
It
that
wouldn't tell you.
yeah, it wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, Mo Gaudat is one of the best people on this, where he really blew up because he used to be part of Google, and he was part of their, like, moonshots divisions where they would go and take these big leaps of growth, and one of them was in AI, and so he was very instrumental in the development of early stages of AI, and he actually came out years ago. He made a book called Scary Smart, I think it was, and he basically echoed your exact point, Keith, where he's like, "If this is a reflection of us, the only chance that we have is to be better," right?
Yeah.
Which is like, that's a terrifying thought because if you've been on the internet lately, like, that ain't happening.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah, that's a very, very interesting thought there for sure, man. We're I definitely have a very pessimistic view of all this stuff. If I'm being honest, I think that like it's always nice to hear the people that say that, oh, don't worry, like it'll be fine. It's nice to hear that some people think that, because I don't feel that way. And I definitely like wonder if, and we'll get back maybe a little bit more on topic after this, but like, do we do we really have a future as a human race? Because in reality, like, there's always going to be a moment in the life cycle of any organic being
Species.
where it dies. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it does die at some point. Um, Nothing lives forever, us as individuals, and probably not as a species. And would it really be all that crazy to think that as we already have so much violence in our world, like if we create the ultimate machine that can be better at that than us, be better at humanity than humans themselves, like would that not potentially accelerate our demise, you know? And maybe not in our
No,
lifetime or whatever.
I don't know. I think things will speed up very quickly. And I also think that I don't think I'm hard pressed to believe that it would end us as a species because I don't see how that would think it's advantageous unless it's because we're a waste of resources. But I do think that if we're its creator, like look at like people who are very religious, right? They worship the creator, right? And so, regardless, you'd think there'd be some of that that would come into it, and hopefully it wouldn't kill us. But like that's definitely where I go. And there's
That's
also important.
interesting.
There's some important things to consider here too. Where Kevin said, "Are you referring to super intelligent AI?" Because that's also the point, right? There's different terms that are along with this. There's like AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. There's uh, SAI, is like ASI, artificial super intelligence. And I recommend going to look up what these definitions actually mean so that you can know because they're not meaning the same sort of thing. Philosophical AI, is that a definition or are you, but I've thought
We
about
should
this
do
a
an
lot,
episode
Keith,
on that.
because of my client, right? Who I have to listen to this stuff every single week. And so I hear the people who are coming on who are incredibly positive and but they're all so far removed from the vast majority of people's experiences. Right? Like it's already getting progressively so hard out there and unfairly so. And I do think that in a best case scenario, this can solve a lot of our problems because it's hard for people to conceptualize a world where like you really don't need a job anymore. I worry about how we transcend that. Right? Like from kids, it's always like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And so when we live in a world where there are no jobs, like we're going to have to start preparing to change how we define a lot of these things. I don't think that's inherently bad per se, but I also think that like we could be living, and maybe we already are living in like a dystopian reality that's presented in a way that's utopia, right? Like as is right now, we walk around and we act like every power structure doesn't screw us over, but they do. And we all just say like, "Oh, well, it is the way that it is. That's how it goes." Like, I think that even if it goes the best case scenario, I just think it probably makes that more dramatic. But we're more numb to the point where you can't specifically tell.
I like rising complexities statement, and then I wanted to go back to
Yeah,
the idea of job. Will there be jobs, or what will the job market look like a little bit too? Yeah. So rising complexity. What about the possibility of binding with AI internally and externally? So I mean, this is what I think. Like, if the AI were benevolent, and they were like, well, there's some use to you. We'll have some use to you. We'll just merge with you, and then make it work. I think that's a possibility. I forgot where I was. I was listening to something that made me feel like that was a real legitimate path. But what I fear from that is that it would still be the end of. It would be the end
humans.
of. Yeah, like
as we know
regular
it.
humans. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and is there something more nefarious about that? Like, is this a very long plan that was done to strip us from human abilities that we don't have, or that we think we don't have because they've been lying dormant for too long? Like, if you go into a lot of the woo-woo stuff, the conspiracy theories, like a lot of people believe that like we are in a dystopian reality right now, and that we are simply, what is the word that the guy who Bob Lazar was one of the first whistleblower, and he basically said, I remember it now. He said that he read in a confidential filing that we human beings are just containers. That's how we're seen, and so it's like, is there some sort of deeper reasoning to that? Like, there's so many interweaving things here that connect to where we go as a species, and I think that people are going to try to do this at the very least. And I think you'll probably get an option in the not too distant future to decide, like, do you want to upload your consciousness? Like, I don't think that's like 5 years away. That's probably like 10 to 20. But like, I think that will probably happen in our lifetime, which is incredibly crazy to think about. Ray Kurzweil, a guy I've mentioned on the show numerous times, he's a futurist. And he's basically described a lot of these scenarios in his book, The Singularity is Nearer. I recommend going to pick that up if you're curious
Mm.
about this stuff. He talks about all of this. And he I think the scariest part is like how consistent he's been with these predictions, and they haven't changed all that much given how long of a time horizon it was. Like a lot of this stuff when he was saying it in the 80s and 90s, people looked at him like he was the craziest person on the planet. Like this guy should be like institutionalized. But a lot of the predictions have turned out to be fairly accurate. And when you think about that, right? If we integrate with, I think the offer will be too good for people, Keith, to not integrate with it.
Right. I mean,
Because think about it.
it's already, yeah, like Neuralink, like Bobby Gooden said, like you would need it. You'd have to have it.
We've seen this on a smaller scale, right? Because like this is actually a perfect case study for this. Social media and the internet gave you access to everything that you need to make whatever life that you want for free. And what did 99% of people do with it? They destroyed their own life. People will always take the path of least resistance, even though it leads to the most amount of pain, right? And so if you can go to these people and basically be like, hey, you don't need to actually do the work to learn anything. You'll instantly know everything. I think you're going to be really hard pressed for the majority of people to say no to that. And if enough people say yes, you're basically forced to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about
That's
this
right.
before. Like my grandpa fought getting a smartphone for as long as he possibly could, right? And then eventually they stopped selling the smartphone, and then he had to get stopped selling the flip phone. They've since come back and all that stuff, but you're basically forced to do it eventually if enough people do it. And I just think that the offering will be too insane for people to say no.
Yeah, man. I talked about it in one of my videos where I was talking about accelerationism or whatever, and it was just like, I was like, I'm not doing the Neuralink thing though. But it's like at some point you will have to face that scenario. Yeah. I mean, hopefully not in our lifetime.
I think it is going to be in our lifetime, dude. I really do. Naval says basically not having it would be very costly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
yeah.
it also comes down to like the system at large, right? Where how we view what's costly. Like I'm hopeful that we can actually get to a place where if people don't have to work, that they put their time towards exploration of other things that are more naturally human, right? Like I think about this all the time too, but we actually know nothing about ourselves. Like we know nothing because the only things that we know for the most part, they got through a filtration system of what you were allowed to watch. Later, Ken, hope you're great, man.
Yes, sir. Talk soon.
And
Man.
then like we only got to know what we were allowed to know. And you think about this too. So many times throughout history where there was a lot of information or knowledge in one place, it would get burned all the time, right? Like let's say someone got overtaken and then they would burn all the books. And you think about how quickly we forget and how quickly it is to I want to do a video about how the schooling system became what it was, how big pharma became what it was, all that stuff. Optional, not mandatory to function in society. Yeah, I think that's what it will start at, right? Like most things did, like using the internet did, like using a phone did, that they were optional and they still technically are optional. But I lived with a flip phone for like a year or two ago to see, and we've become so reliant on technology. Navigating without GPS was like crazy difficult. I was in a place that I'm not from, so that definitely didn't help things. But we are very already reliant on the tech that we have now. Imagine when it's 10 times better and does everything. Did you see that AI robot, Keith, that they announced?
No, I don't think so. And Bigfoot Stepper said before, he said humans are already bonded with AI. They feel emotion about their cars and phones. And yeah, I've definitely always thought about this too. It's like, well, once you have the smartphone, bro, like what really is the difference between that and Neuralink? Like,
It's a
like
body part.
it's right here. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's already attached to us. We're already cyborgs. It's just a matter of like how much closer to, I guess, your brain does the technology actually get. Um,
There yeah, there's a lot of there's one girl who talks about this stuff a lot. I see her clips pop up on TikTok. I can't remember her name, and she's definitely like very fringe conspiracy stuff, but she does have a fair amount of maybe I'll bring her to a future episode in terms of like one of her videos or whatever, but she talks about that exactly. Where like she doesn't even say it metaphorically. She says like this is a body part. And she
mm,
basically said that a lot of our bodies and the things going on within us, they're much like Tesla said, it's energy and frequency and vibration at work, right? And if you think about how this thing functions, it's a lot of those same principles. So it's crazy, man. The robot that came out, I also want to provide this distinction is that I'll show you whoops. I'll show you the video quickly. It was by this company called A1, I think, or whatever. But I'll show you this, and you've probably seen it, Keith, at least on Twitter. But I also want to show you that it can't do most of what it's saying that it could. Let's see. So have you seen this, Keith?
it's pulling up now. I saw, yeah, I saw something about it.
So these things, like this is also what they do, right? Like if you watch this commercial, you're thinking this thing's good to go. You buy it, it's going to come in and do your chores. It can't do like almost any of the shit that it says it can do within this video. There's a different commercial. This is not related. Free advertising for y'all. But like, see, it shows like it's doing some amazing stuff, like doing your laundry and all this stuff. But a lot of these actions are performed by somebody wearing a VR headset. So where it is right now, for it to do almost anything of actual practical utility, it would be some person in like say a different country coming into your house with a VR headset to a robot. Like that's crazy. That's
Wait,
like
wait, wait, wait. So you're saying wait.
yes.
It would be remotely used by someone who's using a VR headset? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly what I'm saying. Yes, almost
Whoa.
all of its use cases you see brother there? I'll get it to come back. I don't have YouTube Premium on this account apparently. But if you see Buddy in the back, look, he's controlling it with
Wow.
VR. So, like, they make it sound like this is going to be some groundbreaking technology that you can buy. It's still farther away than they're making it look. But, yeah, could you imagine that? Like, having some random person in a different country use your robot? Like, that sounds like a horror movie.
That's crazy.
Absurd. This guy's been on my client's podcast before, so I knew about this company. I knew what they were building. And I will say that the marketing is a little bit deceptive because it does make it seem like this is going to be some groundbreaking thing. And I don't think once it gets to a point where it can be self-sufficient, that it's as long as it's built properly, that's a bad thing because there's a lot of older people that need care and they can't afford it. And right. So like, this is a fairly affordable thing when it works, but right now it's pretty useless. Uh, all these pioneers of robotics won't last. Individuals will watch the fail and cut the losses. Watch them fail, I think, like and move on from them. I think most of these companies will not survive, but I think the one that does crack it, Elon is going to have the number one robot. Yeah, you got to think that he is. He's invested a lot of money into this. Their robot seems like it's probably the most likely to be successful. They also have the most money behind it, and it's a really tough thing to crack hardware. Like why we're hearing about AI going so crazy more so than robotics is because this shit's a lot harder. Like there's a lot of variables at play here. Like we do so many things without thinking about it that are actually incredibly complex. So to try to transfer that in a smooth capacity is incredibly difficult to do, and that's why robots like this is a big thing. So, where do you
Naval.
want to go from here? Did
I
you
just
watch this?
wanted to address that because I don't know what he said. I didn't see it.
No, I didn't see the. I'm not sure if I saw the one you're referring to. I did see one where actually producer Kurt sent us the clip. We should try to pull that up. But he said some crazy stuff in a recent interview, and that maybe it's not that crazy. I don't know, but basically he said for the earnings thing. Let's start there. I've heard him come out publicly and basically say that the circular investing thing is something that they're going to be doing even more of because he feels like that they have to basically do any means necessary to continue growth. But then in a different conversation, he talked about the example of, yeah, AI is going to take most jobs, but are they jobs that people actually want to be doing, or are they only doing them because they have to support themselves? And if we figure out
Hmm.
the whole supporting yourself piece, is this better for humanity? And again, if it's a good person building it, it would be, but you're banking on them being a good person. I think that's scarier than we think. And they're also solely reliant on other people that we have no control over. So it's tough because he also used the example of like new jobs will be created too in the short term. Like look at I think the reference that he made or someone else made was that lamplighters don't exist anymore. Like back in the day, there used to be a job where literally people would go around and light the lamps on the street. Like that was literally a job, right? There's so
Right.
many things that we forget that at one time they thought that job would never go away, and then technology's undefeated. It comes and takes them.
Yeah, definitely. And we could transition into thinking about like how that has happened over history. It's like, is AI really going to take all the jobs or will it just create these new ones? My personal belief is that, yeah, it is creating these new ones, but these new jobs are like highly specified jobs that if you don't know what's going on, then you're not eligible for those jobs or qualified.
Yeah.
Um, but what I've seen from the little bit of research that I've done around this is that that's how it starts.
Yes.
And then eventually you get to the place to where it's like, okay, now there's like jobs for
New
normal people
a new
as well.
economy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because right now you either need very specified knowledge or you need to be incredibly smart. Like most people are so far behind, they couldn't be upskilled fast enough to deal with this. Like I think Andrew Yang basically tried to sound the alarm that we need to start teaching truckers new skills and whatnot. I'm like, I think that'd be so difficult to achieve, right? Like a lot of these are going to be by people who already have knowledge that they're foundationally building upon, which gives them a massive advantage. But there's a message here that leads back to our core point of this episode from Underdog, where it says these companies in the US that now have virtual cashiers on the screen, it's cheaper to pay somebody from another country, right? So that's a massive thing that I think is really where a lot of these job cuts are coming from. It's a byproduct of your ability to offshore. What's up, Keith? Looks like you got a thought.
I'm just like, what? That's a thing?
Yeah, I've not seen that, but I've seen the automated like, um, we're not ready for super intelligence. Uh,
Yeah,
one thing I was gonna
saying
say
that's
was
an
that,
idea.
yeah, definitely. But so automation's been a thing that's been going on for a long time. Like, look, self checkouts are a big thing, and self checkouts are also crazy. One of my favorite not economists, marketers, Rory Sutherland, I think is his name. He basically said that yeah, net maybe it's a good as to start with for these say grocery stores to have these self checkouts, but eventually you can't do a big grocery haul when you're doing it all yourself. It's just like too much to handle. And so then he thinks that in the long term, a lot of these people who are automating everything will eventually come to regret it and see the other benefits that jobs were having that you couldn't directly look at the bottom line and attribute it to it. But for jobs, let's get back to like the core thesis of job loss. So the first thing we talked about was why you got a point?
I wanted to test a thought. I wanted
Go
to
for it.
test a thought with everyone here. So I had this thought the other day when we were listening to Jerome Powell talk about, the job market and how it's doing so poorly. And then we have this other video that we just watched from this TikTok guy saying that, well, really what's happening is these companies are just taking their money and they're investing it into AI and not into people. So my thought that I kind of gathered from this was like, could what the Fed's doing by lowering interest rates in an attempt to try to save the job market, could that potentially accelerate the problem
Yeah,
by then allowing it to be easier for companies to get cheaper money to go out and invest in AI instead of in people? And
totally.
I just wanted to test that thought out with people, see if that makes
Completely,
any
right? Because when you
sense.
think about who really benefits from these lower rates, it's not like you and me very much, right? Like
No.
it's people who are gonna be hiring and if you like you said, if they're hiring to build chips and to build facilities, like that doesn't really help too many people unless they have specialized information and skills. But why chips are so expensive, I had that written down here for the job connection, is that there's not many people in the world that can make these chips that are needed to do this, which is a massive problem. And they have a lot of IP, intellectual property attached to it. And they're one of the only few places in the world where they can be built. So they can basically make whatever price they want. And so that's why they're so damn expensive. And that's why they're banking so much on this. And for people who are the most impacted by this, I think about young people and they got like extremely screwed by all of this because what I'm seeing in terms of the offshoring jobs, I think that's really where a lot of this is going is that they're starting to offshore jobs because where AI is right now it can't do all the jobs, but if you give a competent foreign worker AI, it is significantly better than an entry-level employee natively, like in your home country. That's like, I've lived it. I've hired someone here locally who was a junior employee, and then I hired someone overseas who had like the AI tools, and this guy was way better and cheaper, right? And so you think that like I'm a tiny business, and you don't think that some massive businesses are going to look at this and be like, oh my God, this is the clear and obvious way to go, because you can get someone who is very experienced, because before they couldn't really help you because the language thing was more of a problem, like we talked about, right? This solves a lot of that issue for the communication thing. And also when people are doing this, because they can communicate better and in real time see how they should be communicating, they also learn English and everything faster because there's so many data points to make connections on. And so then when they already have the industry specific knowledge and they're using it every single day, you're already tapping into things they have deep neural connections with. And then now you're connecting it with the appropriate language. They're going to learn English as fast as someone like here eventually, right? So it's I really do feel for people looking for their first job